notifications. So this is work with Bilal Yusuf, who's here as well, and Owen Conn. So at the moment, the way libraries interact or engage, I guess, with their users would be the users come in and they would search for the resource they're looking for. So building on obviously the work with Lucy, where they're interlinking the resources in the libraries, and then they're enabling the users to go in and search. But I guess the libraries of the future, how can we get these resources to the users without them even needing to search, or how can we just know that they need these resources based on their context or based on their activities in their lives? So let's go through the motivation. So you can think about library alerts. So your textbook is ready for collection, that's kind of a standard one, but maybe found a paper which could help you with your latest assignment. So you don't really know what you don't know, but all these resources are in the library, and they have the ability to see your past engagement, see your current context, and give you alerts and tell you about these resources that can be used. So again, how do we push these notifications at a time that are most contextually relevant? Because you're already getting loads of notifications from your WhatsApp, from your Facebook, so how can we deliver these notifications at a more contextually relevant time so that they don't overload you and give you even more spam in your email? So the library notifications, how can we integrate them in such an empathetic and intelligent way that they engage the users and inspire loyalty to come back and use the resources of the library? So instead of getting an email telling you about the library resources and then getting another notification telling you about the library resource, everyone can kind of relate to this kind of scenario. Does anyone have Twitter? Use Twitter? Does anyone have a large amount of following? Large followers? Big social media? So this is what it looks like if you've got a large following on social media. This is what your notifications will look like. So obviously that's an overload of information. You're never going to get any use out of that. So these library notifications need to be more empathetic and intelligent to the user so that they're delivered at a contextually relevant time and they're not causing this overload of information. Because obviously there's always going to be resources available that are relevant to you at your given time, but what are the ones that are most valuable at a given time? So my research is kind of in the area of push notifications. So we did an experiment where we monitored push notifications on a user's device, and you can see this is just time spent up on a Friday. How many notifications are distracting you at a given time, and the majority of notifications that come in, they're not valuable to us in their given context. They can be valuable at later times, but in their given context we dismiss the vast majority of them, which is bad for the user in terms of their user experience, because you're overloading the user and they're becoming more anxious, they're becoming more addicted to technology. Terms such as phantom vibration syndrome, where you're looking at your phone because you think you've got a notification, you open your phone, and nomophobia, fear of missing out. So these are things that we don't want our children to grow up with, because we're reinforcing these addictive tendencies, which could cause problems later. So we don't want the library to add to this problem by sending more push notifications. So that's kind of state of the art of the research. So we can see that it's a problem. So even unnecessary notifications, they'll dramatically decrease productivity. So if you get them at the wrong time, so obviously the library is all about making you more productive. They're giving you resources to enable you to work better. So pushing notifications or pushing this information at the right time is very important. So at the moment, when you think about your Facebook notifications or the marketing notifications you get, what they're actually using are these agencies, so like Lean Plum, Push Group, Raise, where they observe your data and your engagements with the notifications in the background, and then they make inferences based on those engagements, and then they push notifications at the discretion of the person who wants you to get the information. So they're trying to maximize the click-through rate of the marketing agency that have hired them, which isn't great for the end user. So there's a breakdown in communication between the end user and the people pushing this information. So they use technology for this purpose. So Phrasee is a natural language processing artificial intelligence, where they've managed to predict subject lines that they know that you will absolutely click. So subject lines of emails, so emojis for instance is one thing that increases the click-through rate of your emails. So they're actually monitoring your emails and your engagements, and then they're customizing the subject line to you to make sure that you would click it, whether or not it's good for your digital health or whether or not it's good for your state of mind. So this work, I guess, is how can we make these persuasive notifications more scrutable. So it's okay to give us value in terms of these push notifications. They're adding value, they're giving us information in contextually relevant time, but if you're using persuasive manipulations to try and get them to click it just to maximize your profits at the end of the day, that's not good for me. So how can we be more transparent in how you're pushing me these notifications? And then how can we make these more intelligent? So how can we generate these push notifications and maximize the click-through rate, but also show me how you're persuading me to do that, and how is it more relevant to my context, so how is it more valuable to me? So one of the ways we did this was using Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion. So take authority as one of the principles, for instance. So people follow and respect requests made by an authority. So you can think of a library pushing you a notification, that's an authority figure you're going to trust, have more trust in the library pushing you a notification. And as well with different applications pushing you notifications, you're going to have, that varies in terms of the trust you have in those applications. So authority was one of the principles. So we extracted features of these notifications based on Cialdini's principles. So you can think of Ryanair. If Ryanair sends you an offer at the airport, you're more than likely, or sends you a notification at the airport, you're more than likely going to accept that notification just because you're at the airport. Ryanair are contextually relevant. So scarcity is another Cialdini's principle. So if you don't see a notification cropping up a lot, so if it's a rare notification, you're more likely to accept it. So it's more persuasive. Same with liking, so people will follow what they like. If the subject is something that I want to see, obviously I'm going to accept that notification. Social proof. So this is basically based on what the vast majority of people interact with their notifications is similar. So WhatsApp messages or Facebook likes, people tend to interact with them in the same way. And they tend to always have the same habit. So one of the problems we found with this is how to deliver notifications in a more intelligent way, but in a way that is breaking users' habits at the moment, which is quite difficult to do. So when you get a notification, you get a dopamine hit, which is great. You think you're fantastic, you got a notification, very popular. So how can I not send you that notification if it's better for you in the long run, but telling you that this instant gratification isn't good for you now? So the user will think it's a bad user experience, but in the long run, it's having a positive impact on their digital health. And so these are all things the library needs to think about when they do create these notifications. So reciprocity, so people feel obliged to return favors. If you get a notification, if someone sends you a birthday wish, then you're obviously going to send a birthday wish back, or you're going to accept that notification because it's more persuasive. So for the experiment, we had an app on people's phones where it was gathering notifications, 15 participants, 30,000 notifications, and we were just gathering details on how they engage with their notifications. So you can see we tend to get about 60 notifications a day, but we actually dismiss half of them. So you can think of that 30 times during the day, you've just been poked in the back saying, here's this piece of information, and you've just said, go away. And every time you open your phone, you're going to get distracted by something else on your device. Oh, I had an email come in, or I'll check Facebook or Instagram. You've just lost like 5 or 10 minutes in the day. That builds up quite a bit when you get so many notifications. So maybe not the amount of notifications that social influencer was having, but it's still a significant amount of time that you can get back during the day. So using Cialdini's principles, we created a system where we can scrutinize the notifications and see how we're being manipulated based on these various features of persuasiveness. Another part of the work is to synthesize. So how can we generate notifications based on these persuasive features that we know the user will click but are also still good for them? So for doing this, we used a generative adversarial network. So taking the notification data, we learned the latent distribution of how the user engages with their notifications to create notifications that we know that they'll like. So this is just some of the results. So you can see from authority, some of the authority categories would be message, but you can also see reminders, calls, events. So these are all kind of authoritative figures in terms of the Android. We did the experiment on Android. These are all authoritative Android apps, so you can see that they scored highly in the authority persuasive feature. Obviously, some of the features were more useful than others. So scarcity, you can see all the different types of category are kind of similar in scarcity. So regardless of whether or not it's a message or a call, if it's a if you're not used to getting calls or messages, you're more likely going to accept it just because it's scarce in value. Social proof, you can see calls and messages were the highest persuasive there. And then for predicting click-through rate, we found that the persuasive features were most indicative of whether or not a user would click through a notification. So when generating these notifications, using these persuasive features is more beneficial than using the raw features like the app that sent it or the posted data group. The notifications we're generating are indicative of real-world data. So they are still representative of the real world data that the user has engaged with. So it's not like I've never seen a Facebook message before. It will still send notifications that I'm used to seeing. So when we generated these persuasive notifications, you can see it vastly increased the click-through rate compared to red, which is the benchmark, and the original notifications, which are in blue, for 6 of the 10 users. So it's depending on the amount of, obviously, data that we can get on the user at the same time. So novel contribution, extracting and scrutinizing persuasive push notifications using Cialdini's methods, and generating synthetic persuasive notifications in real time. So you can think about smart library notifications, where we're generating these notifications based on the resources that the library has, so that me as a user, I don't have to go and search for something that I think might be useful. It just sees based on the context, based on my current work, activities, if I'm a researcher, what resources are now available or going to be available to the library, and they can nudge me to come in and make use of those resources. I'm also doing a feasibility study out of this research, so if you want to learn more, NPushi is kind of the name of the work. Any questions? Thank you.